Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive, this time into the history of America's national parks.
Yeah.
You know those picture-perfect postcard views we all know?
Mm-hmm.
We're going beyond those today.
Yeah. Gonna get a little deeper.
Definitely.
I think you'll find it interesting.
I'm sure I will, especially with this material.
Okay.
We've got an academic podcast outlining the park's history.
Right, the broad strokes.
Yeah.
Kind of the big picture overview.
Exactly. And then to really bring it to life, we've got a first-hand account from a Yellowstone visitor
Oh wow.
back in 1924.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
really journey through time.
Yeah, gonna be looking at how management practices changed.
Yeah, how they evolved and how that constant
That push and pull between
preserving nature.
preservation.
Yeah, and letting people experience it.
Yeah. How do we
Balance that?
Yeah, exactly.
So-
It's a tough one.
It is.
It's a tough one. But I think, you sent over that firsthand account, and I think that'll really grab people.
Oh, for sure.
Imagine you're driving through Yellowstone. It's 1924,
Okay.
and a bear just walks right out onto the road in front of you.
Okay, what do the park rangers do?
What do they do?
Yeah.
So I bet you're thinking, like, stay in your cars. We'll get this bear.
Some kind of warning?
Yeah.
Or-
Not quite.
Okay.
Not even close.
Okay.
This was a totally different time back then.
Okay.
Bear encounters, they were treated like almost an attraction.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, the ranger in this story,
Okay.
he joked that this particular bear was like Jesse James.
Like the outlaw.
Yeah.
Okay.
Famous for approaching visitors.
Wow.
Oh.
People were actually encouraged to interact with the wildlife.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The couple in this story, they fed the bear fudge.
What?
It's a different time.
No kidding. So different than today.
Completely different mindset.
Yeah.
Back then, the lines were just blurrier.
Yeah, between humans and wildlife.
Right, exactly. And the dangers just weren't fully understood, I think.
Not at all, no. So they're having this this lovely, this comical encounter
Yeah.
feeding the bear fudge.
And then things take a turn.
Yeah.
So the bear, he gets a little bowl, starts eyeing their lunch basket,
Oh.
even shakes their car a little bit.
Oh, no.
So suddenly it goes from amusing to,
Concerning.
yeah, a little concerning,
Yeah.
a little scary.
Maybe not such a good idea to be feeding bears fudge.
Probably not a good idea.
Not a good idea.
But it speaks to, how we viewed wildlife back then.
Yeah.
Totally different.
Completely different. So how did we get from those early days to the National Park Service that we know today?
That's where Stephen Matter comes in.
Okay.
Yeah, he's often considered the father of the national parks.
Okay.
And what's interesting is he wasn't a naturalist or a scientist or anything like that.
Yeah.
He was a wealthy businessman with a deep love for the outdoors.
Okay. So what sparked his interest in actually protecting these spaces?
So his connection to John Muir and the Sierra Club that played a big role.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they opened his eyes to just the beauty and the fragility of these landscapes and the need to preserve them, for future generations.
Yeah, it seems like he was really ahead of his time,
Yeah, absolutely.
especially in that regard. I guess his business background probably came in handy
Oh, for sure.
when it came to actually creating the National Park Service.
Yeah, so Mather understood that creating a national park service that required more than just passion. It
Right.
needed public support,
Sure.
needed smart strategy.
Yeah.
And that's when he launched the brilliant See America First campaign.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. Wasn't that around World War I?
You're right, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, so Mather, he capitalized on that anti-European sentiment, encouraged Americans to explore their own country.
Instead of going abroad.
Exactly.
That's so clever.
Yeah.
Really tapping into that national pride.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I imagine it took more than just a catchy slogan to get the government on board.
You're right, it did. He organized what became known as the Mather Mountain Party.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Yeah.
So he invited all these influential figures
Yeah, politicians, businessmen, journalists,
on a trip
on a lavish trip.
through the parks.
Yeah, through several national parks.
Well, that's fantastic. What a great idea
It was.
to showcase the beauty of these places
Exactly.
and win over some supporters.
That's exactly right. And it worked.
It worked.
Yeah, the trip was a huge success.
Wow. So Mather really understood the power of, that grassroots enthusiasm,
He did.
but also the lobbying.
Yeah, that's strategic lobbying.
And that combination
Yeah,
led to the signing of the National Park Service Organic Act in 1916,
that's right.
and then he became the first director.
The first director.
What a legacy.
What a legacy.
Amazing. But you were saying earlier that, his journey wasn't always easy.
No, not at all.
What was it about his struggles with depression that you thought was so interesting?
Well, it's often overlooked,
Yeah.
but, Mather, he battled with severe depression. Yeah, and in fact, just months after the Park Service was formed, he had to take a leave of absence.
Wow.
Yeah, so imagine the pressure he must have felt to keep that a secret,
Oh, absolutely.
especially at a time when mental health was so stigmatized.
People didn't talk about things like that.
Didn't talk about it.
Yeah. It's so hard to imagine that burden of leading this new
And
organization.
dealing with something so personal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what's striking is that Mather eventually returned, and he came back even more driven to develop the parks.
Really?
Yeah.
So he was even more gung-ho.
Yeah, he pushed for the use of automobiles,
Okay.
expanded the park ranger program, and really prioritized public access.
Okay.
Which, of course, not without controversy.
Yeah.
Yeah, some preservationists, they worried that he was focusing too much on entertainment
Right.
and not enough on protecting the natural environment.
It's that balance again.
It is,
Yeah.
yeah. That tension was there right from the beginning.
It seems like it's always been there.
It has been.
Yeah, but even with those concerns,
Yeah.
Mather's vision really did shape the parks we know today.
Absolutely, he left his mark.
For sure.
But as you'll see, the story of the national parks is one of constant learning and adaptation.
Yeah.
So as more people visited and we began to understand these ecosystems, more new challenges and different approaches emerged.
And some of those approaches had, unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about with George Melinda's right and the wolves in Yellowstone.
That's a perfect example how our
Yeah.
understanding of ecology evolved and how well-intentioned actions can sometimes backfire.
Right.
But we'll delve into that more in a bit.
Okay, sounds good. So we talked about Mather's vision for the parks and, that early approach to wildlife management.
Yeah.
Things started to shift with scientists like George Melendez Wright.
Mm-hmm.
He was a young naturalist who really dug deep into the impact that humans were having on the park ecosystems.
Yeah, his work in Yellowstone especially.
Yeah.
That brought some hard truths to light.
So what did Wright find in Yellowstone that was so groundbreaking?
Well, he discovered that the park's decision to eradicate predators like wolves,
Okay.
that was having a ripple effect on the whole ecosystem.
So you'd think that, removing a predator would make things better
Right, on the surface, yeah.
for the prey.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's not what happened.
No, not at all.
What were they missing?
So what Wright revealed was this concept called trophic cascade.
Okay, I've heard of this.
Yeah. Essentially, you remove a top predator, like the wolf,
Yeah.
and it throws the whole food web off balance.
Okay.
So in Yellowstone, without wolves to keep the elk population in check,
Yeah.
the elk numbers exploded.
Okay, so too many elk.
Too many elk, and what happens?
What happens
They
then?
start overgrazing,
Okay.
which decimates the vegetation, and that alters the landscape.
Wow, so it's all interconnected.
That's all connected.
You can't just remove one element without,
Without there being consequences.
yeah, even if you have the best intentions.
Right, exactly.
Wow. So how did the Park Service react to all this?
Well, it was a pretty radical idea at the time.
Yeah.
And the Park Service, like any large institution,
Yeah.
it can be slow to change.
Especially when it challenges, what they've been doing.
Long-held beliefs,
Exactly.
practices. Yeah, so they were resistant at first.
So bringing the wolves back?
Initially, yeah.
Wow.
They were so focused on, protecting certain species,
Mhm.
making sure visitors had a good experience,
Right.
that they didn't grasp those broader ecological implications.
It's hard to see the big picture sometimes
It is.
when you're focused on just one thing.
Yeah, it took time and a lot of pushing from Wright and others to shift that thinking.
It's amazing how often we try to control nature
Yeah,
without understanding the consequences.
absolutely.
And it wasn't just the wolves, right?
Yeah.
Didn't something similar happen with fire suppression?
You're exactly right.
I remember learning about that.
Yeah.
How sequoias actually need fire to thrive.
Yeah, for decades, the thinking was that all fires were harmful.
Right. Put them out.
Yeah, extinguish them immediately,
But that ended up backfiring.
especially in those sequoia forests. Yeah.
So tell me how fighting fire actually hurt the sequoias.
So that's where Dr. Richard Hardisfeld comes in.
Right.
He was a researcher who studied fire in the sequoia ecosystem,
Okay.
and he discovered that these trees, they actually evolved to depend on fire.
Really? So they need fire to...
Not just to reproduce,
Ah, okay.
but also to clear out that underbrush,
Oh, okay.
create space for new growth.
So fire is a natural part of their life cycle?
It is.
Wow. But by putting out every fire,
Mm-hmm.
the Park Service actually.
Created the perfect conditions for those catastrophic wildfires.
How so?
Well, without regular fires to thin things out,
Yeah.
the forests got much denser,
Okay.
which made them more susceptible to those really intense fires.
Wow. So trying to protect the forests by putting out every fire,
Ironic, isn't it?
it is,
Yeah.
made them more vulnerable. Wow. So Hardisfeld, he recognized this, and he started advocating for prescribed burns.
They did.
So these are controlled burns.
Right, intentionally set to mimic those natural fire cycles.
Did the Park Service go for that right away?
It was a tough sell.
Yeah.
There was a lot of resistance.
Yeah, understandable.
Skepticism.
Yeah.
Yeah, inertia to overcome.
It's hard to change people's minds.
It is.
But eventually, Hardisfeld's research led to a major paradigm shift
It did.
in how we think about fire.
Absolutely.
It's amazing how these two guys, Wright and Hardisfeld,
Mm-hmm.
they were able to challenge these long-held beliefs.
Yeah, they were both incredibly dedicated and persistent,
Yeah.
and they had the evidence to back up their claims.
Yeah.
But also, I think they understood the ecosystems.
They had that passion.
Yeah, they had that passion for protecting these places.
And that's what allowed them to, push those
They
boundaries.
were willing to challenge the status quo,
Even when it was unpopular.
even when it was unpopular. Yeah.
They were true pioneers.
I re-
And their work has really changed how we manage these spaces.
Absolutely.
What does all this history tell us about how we should be approaching the future of the parks?
Well, it's amazing to think how much our understanding of the parks has evolved since those early days.
Yeah, feeding bears fudge,
Right.
putting out every spark.
Exactly. We've come a long way.
Yeah.
We've gone from seeing them as static playgrounds
Yeah.
to these complex, dynamic ecosystems.
And we still have so much to learn.
Oh, absolutely. The challenges are always changing.
Yeah, like climate change.
Climate change. Yeah, increasing visitation.
Yeah. How do we balance protecting them and letting people enjoy them?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is. We can't just shut them off.
No.
But don't touch.
Right. There has to be a way for people to connect with nature.
If not, what's the point?
Exactly. Why are we even bothering to protect them?
Yeah.
It's a balancing act. These
Yeah.
aren't museums. These
Yeah.
are living, breathing landscapes.
Yeah, we got to be responsible.
Yeah, we need to figure out how to be responsible stewards.
But also let people enjoy them.
Yeah, it's not easy.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
But the stories of Wright and Hardisfeld give me hope.
Mm-hmm.
They show that we can change course.
We can adapt.
When we're presented with new information,
We can.
they were visionaries.
They were.
They challenged the status quo,
Mm-hmm.
and their work had a lasting impact.
It did.
I mean, think about it. We've gone from fearing fire
Yeah.
to using it as a tool to keep our forests healthy.
Amazing, isn't it?
It's huge.
Yeah. That's a huge shift.
What other shifts in thinking do we need to make for the future
Right.
to address the challenges that are facing the parks today?
That's a great question. What do we need to be thinking about?
Yeah.
We got to keep asking those tough questions.
Yeah.
Like, how do we ensure the long-term health of these ecosystems?
Yeah.
What are the limits of human intervention?
Right.
Where's that line between preservation and access?
Those are big questions.
There.
And there are no easy answers.
Well, no.
But that's what this whole deep dive has been about.
Right.
Understanding that complex history,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing the mistakes that were made.
Learning from them.
Yeah, and using that knowledge to inform how we move forward.
Absolutely.
And it's a conversation that each of us can participate in,
I think so too.
whether it's researching the history of our favorite park,
Yeah,
supporting conservation efforts, or just
Mhm.
reflecting on our own experiences in nature.
absolutely.
We all have a role to play in shaping the future of these places.
They do.
I love that it's not just about, leaving it to the experts.
Right.
We can all be stewards of these spaces.
In our own ways.
Yeah, even in small ways.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I'm left with this sense of awe
Yeah.
for the beauty and complexity of our national parks,
Mm-hmm.
but also this sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
We've inherited this incredible legacy,
We have.
and it's up to all of us to make sure that future generations get to experience that same wonder and inspiration.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, go explore, learn, and appreciate these treasures, but always remember, we're only temporary visitors
Mm.
in these ancient and magnificent landscapes.
That's right.
It's amazing to think just how much our understanding of the parks has evolved.
Oh, yeah.
Since those early days of feeding bears fudge
Right.
and, putting out every spark of fire.
Yeah, we've come a long way
We've come a long way, yeah.
in our thinking.
Yeah, we've gone from seeing them as these, static playgrounds to these complex, dynamic ecosystems.
Yeah. That's a key takeaway for me too, and it
Yeah.
makes you realize how much we still have to learn.
Oh, absolutely.
The challenges facing the parks are always changing, climate change,
Climate change.
increasing visitation,
Yeah.
finding that balance.
Yeah, between protection
Yeah.
and access.
And enjoyment,
Right, exactly. We can't just shut these places off and say, look, but don't touch.
No.
There has to be a way for people to connect with nature.
Yeah, if not, what's the point?
Of protecting them.
Exactly.
It's a constant balancing act.
Yeah. These aren't museums.
Oh, right.
These are living, breathing landscapes.
Yeah.
And we need to be responsible stewards, while still allowing people to experience them.
It's tough.
It's not easy.
It's not easy. But, the stories of Wright and Hardisfeld,
Yeah.
they give me hope.
Mm-hmm.
They show that we can change course.
We can adapt.
We can adapt our thinking.
Yeah, when presented with new information.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're not stuck.
Right. And they were true visionaries.
They were.
They challenged the status quo.
Yeah, they advocated for something different.
And their work has had a lasting impact.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. We've gone from fearing fire to using it
It's amazing.
as a tool to keep our forests healthy.
It is amazing.
It's a huge shift in mindset.
It really is, yeah.
So what other shifts in thinking do we need to make
Right, what's next?
to address the challenges that are facing the parks today?
Yeah, we got to keep asking those tough questions.
Like what?
How do we ensure the long-term health of these ecosystems?
Yeah.
What are the limits of human intervention?
Where do we draw the line
Where's that line?
between preservation and access?
Yeah, those are big questions.
Those are big questions.
And there are no easy answers.
And I know easy answers,
Yeah.
but engaging in that conversation, I think, is crucial.
I think so too.
And that's what this whole deep dive has been about.
Yeah, just trying to understand.
Trying to understand that complex history.
Yeah.
Recognizing the mistakes that were made.
And learning from them.
And using that knowledge to
Yeah.
inform how we move forward.
Absolutely.
And it's a conversation that we can all participate in.
Yeah, I think that's important to remember.
Yeah, whether it's, researching our favorite park,
Yeah.
supporting conservation efforts,
Ruminating.
or just reflecting on our own experiences in nature.
Mm-hmm. Just being mindful
Yeah.
out there.
We all have a role to play.
We do.
I love that it's not just, leaving it to the experts.
It's a shared responsibility.
Yeah, it's a shared responsibility.
Yeah, we can all be stewards
We can all be stewards
in our own way.
in our own ways, even in small ways.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with a sense of awe
Yeah.
for the beauty and the complexity of our national parks,
Mm-hmm.
but also a sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
We've inherited this incredible legacy,
We have.
and it's up to us to make sure that future generations get to experience that same wonder and inspiration that we do.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself. Go explore, learn, and appreciate these treasures. But always remember, we're only temporary visitors
Yeah.
in these ancient and magnificent landscapes.
Well said.